sex organs, pain relievers, mood elevators. So today I want to talk to you about a few of my favorite things. I want to talk to you about flowers. What are flowers exactly? I think they're nature's most fabulous way of showing off, of procreation, obviously. Flowers have been a part of the human experience since the beginning of humans. It's the universal way to say, I love you, I'm sorry, thank you, congratulations, I care about you, etc., etc. And flowers have been used since the beginning of human experience for pagan rites and rituals, for weddings and funerals, for celebrations, for celebrating key life moments. Artists have used flowers to decorate, to paint them onto canvases. You know, you think sunflowers and water lilies, you immediately think Van Gogh and Monet. They have been embroidered into gowns, they have been woven into tapestries, they have been carved into wood and plaster and marble and decorate our most stoic of buildings. I think flowers are more important now than ever before. It's kind of a crazy time we live in, and flowers, to me, are really the harbingers of joy. They are here to cheer us on. They're our little cheerleaders. They say that, spending time in nature relieves stress, which, especially if you live in a large city like I do, it's not something you get to do all the time. Flowers are portable nature. I fell under the spell of flowers at a very early age. I grew up in Central California, a farm boy, an area that's not necessarily known for its natural scenic beauty, but things grew like crazy. Rose bushes would get, they would be 12 feet tall and they'd be covered with hundreds and hundreds of blossoms. Wisteria vines the size of, my leg, sweet peas, sunflowers, zinnias. As fast as this stuff grew, I would cut it down and I'd take it inside. I come from a family of gardeners, so it was in my blood. And as sort of an awkward preteen teenager, never really comfortable in my own skin, pretty lousy at sports and traditional boy things, flowers were kind of my sanctuary. And I had an incredible hunger for beauty. There wasn't a lot of it around, but there were a lot of flowers. And I quickly realized how flowers had the power to transform a space. Bringing flowers into an environment, be it the most beautiful environment or the most humble environment, they change the energy of the room. Furniture and antiques and wallpaper and art, it's all beautiful, but it's all dead. And flowers are alive, and they're the tie that makes everything else really sing. Traditionally in my family, after church on Sundays, we'd have company over, and the women would be in the kitchen doing what the women did. The men would all be in the living room discussing the game, or God, or guns, and I would be in the dining room doing what I loved best, decorating the table. Kind of in between both worlds, but kind of oblivious to both worlds, just very happy to be with my buds. I loved history. I was an avid reader, and I was a magazine junkie. House and Garden magazine was my sort of like, I couldn't get enough of it, and I was, in the sticks of California reading about these beautiful, glamorous parties in New York, and I would, in the history books, I always was so inspired. I think I was a Roman in a past life. But I didn't care so much about the gladiator games, but I was really fascinated and loved the garlands and the wreaths and the way flowers were used to decorate a city in a big, bold, gutsy way. And I loved the Flemish paintings, the Flemish master botanical paintings that were these drop-dead gorgeous displays of flowers against these rich, black, inky backdrops. And, and when I realized at a very early age that these paintings could not exist as they were painted because they had access to the blooms as the flowers bloomed in their particular season. So you did not necessarily have a dianthus or a peony with a fritillaria or a sweet pea, because they just didn't happen at the same time. So these magnificent displays and compositions of flowers would take a year or two to produce, and so technically they never existed. You know, they only existed in the artist's mind and on the canvas. And the artist would take these blooms and just force the viewer of that canvas to look at the glory of, you know, of a peony, of a cabbage rose, of an anemone, of a dahlia, a sweet pea. And it was right there, larger than life, playing beautifully with its neighbor that didn't actually exist because it hadn't bloomed yet. And all its perfection and imperfection. The bug bite on the petals, the little broken stem randomly. And I love the contrast of that. I love the contrast of light and dark, the sheer sort of masculinity with the softness of the femininity, the contrast of raw and refined. And I took that with me, fast forward 20 years, to New York, where I traded the orchards of Modesto for the streets of Manhattan. And while, you know, Manhattan had this kind of glamour and beauty that I had thought I craved for in my youth, they didn't have the blooming trees of almonds in February. They didn't have the 12-foot tall rose bushes covered in 200 blossoms. It didn't have nature by the armload. It had a lot of money, it had a lot of power, it was very fancy, but I quickly realized that luxury was space and nature. And I couldn't do anything about the space, but I could do something about the nature. I started my firm in 2002 and really jumped into doing what I loved best, transforming ballrooms and art museums and spaces with armloads, more accurately truckloads, of branches and vines and blossoms and fruit, and, you know, trying to recreate these Flemish paintings that were in my mind in sort of this lush, layered, almost masculine way, heavy-handed but decadent, but never, I hope, that felt ostentatious or off-putting, always sort of seeking to bring glory to the flower. You know, I wanted my guests who were oftentimes had seen it all to just really walk in and just feel like, they're in the presence of beauty. And I feel like flowers are such a great social equalizer. You know, it doesn't matter if you have $1 or 100 billion in the bank. Everybody needs beauty, and everybody needs joy. You know, we live in a day and age where we talk about hope and love, but the word that always resonates for me is joy. And I think flowers bring us joy. My business went really well, is going really well, and I, you know, as time went by and the things that happens when you're the owner of a small business and you have employees and payroll and client expectations, the joy of flowers, I think, maybe diminished a little bit with me. I stopped seeing them. They were something I had in my presence every single day. They were like water or furniture. You know, it was a part of my life. But I distinctly remember leaving the studio, my studio in the East Village, one day after work. It was a Friday afternoon. And I walked out of my studio in the East Village, and I went counter against all the foot traffic that was all coming from their midtown jobs and their cubicles, all the professionals, and I was carrying a large armload of leftover flowers that were pretty much on their last leg. And I was really struck by the sheer desire that I saw in people's eyes. And it wasn't towards me, it was towards this amazing bundle of beauty in my arms, and in their eyes was this longing. And you get on a subway, which a New York City subway during rush hour is not anybody's favorite place to be. But something about this big, bodacious armload of flowers really, it's like everybody's like giving you some side eye. And it struck me, and it's like, wow, people are really hungry for beauty. You know, we live in this city, this amazing city. We live in this amazing country. You know, we have it all, but do we? And it it stayed with me. A couple years later, business still going well, becoming, I guess, a little complacent. Was like, is this all there is? Am I, not? Am I just here to make, wealthy people their lives a little bit prettier? How can I give back? I'm a florist, for crying out loud. Like, how can I give back in a meaningful way? But that's really, it stays true to who I am, and it's authentic to what I do and what I love. And I remember that time leaving the studio with the armload of flowers. And I thought, it's my fellow New Yorkers, it's my fellow citizens who need this joy in their life, even if it's a quick fix, even if it's a very ephemeral thing, which flowers are. How can I take flowers out of the confines of these very cultivated environments in which I create these beautiful situations, but actually have it be for the average person and just bring a little unexpected joy to their life? And that's where I started to think about how can I do something that would push me also creatively, give back, but also kind of like push me out of my comfort zone, push me out of the box. My preferred place of being is safely under the radar. I was terrible at PR and networking, and I had managed to develop a nice business without having to go out there and kind of do anything, and most of it was word of mouth. Well, that all changed when I started the Flower Flash. And the first flash happened 3 years ago. We had done this movie premiere in Midtown and created this floral wall with all these incredible day glow carnations, dahlias, and sort of 60s mod pop colors, hot pink, yellow, burgundy. And not my typical style, contrary to what I say, that's not very much akin to a Dutch master, but it was in theme with the party. So all these flowers came back to the studio, and they came back in big clear garbage bags. And all the stems were about 2 inches because they had been put into this wall. And bag after bag after bag of day glow, the most beautiful trash I'd ever seen, came back into the studio. And we looked at each other like, this is the time. We've been talking about this. What can we do with these flowers that still have some life in them, instead of just having them go into the skip? Let's have some fun. So the first flash, we got up early the next morning, went to Central Park to the John Lennon Memorial, and it's the Imagine Medallion. And, simply put, took these flowers as they were and just did this day glow wreath around the medallion. It wasn't simple. It was simple. It wasn't like overly thought. Kept it very graphic and bold. It was 5 o'clock in the morning. It was a little chilly. Didn't know if what we were doing was exactly legal, but it was kind of exciting. It's like, well, we're not hurting anything, and they are flowers, and so let's just, what the heck? Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. And and the rest is history. That we've done nearly 65 flashes after that, and they took off. They became it became a social media thing. And doing these, it became really clear to me how much people needed joy. Not only did it, make me super happy to do this, and it was like the best dopamine rush ever, waking up early and just doing these installations that take 15 or 20 minutes, but for people to leave their apartment in the morning and to get off of their iPhone and just to look up and see something beautiful and unexpected, it's there for no other reason other than to bring joy, is the purpose of the Flower Flash. It is, thank you. And also, like the Dutch master painting, it's like these things that I love so much. Yeah, look at that guy. Making people look at flowers, it connects people of all generations, all demographics, and it's creatively inspired me again. It's pushed me out of my comfort zone. It's pushed me out of my design box, and made me fall in love with these things that I love the best, these shapeshifters, these magicians, these cheerleaders. thank you for letting me talk to you about flowers.